So I wanted to do this video to talk about review boards and to talk about police data. I decided to kind of merge the two topics because they're kind of the same argument in my opinion. So a lot of sex worker exclusionary feminists and people who believe that the sex industry needs to be criminalized and abolished, a lot of them see our lives as collateral damage. Like, they don't really care. They think that we deserve to lose our income and deserve to be in prison because they think that is a way to save us from the exploitation that is the sex industry. So they believe that our lives being ruined permanently and our possible deaths are an okay collateral damage and a risk they're willing to take because they need to take down the sex industry at all costs. We're just going to start there because it's literally, that's what it's like to debate them, to even talk to them. They just don't view your life as being any particular, like, meaningful or anything that should be taken into consideration at all, because they're just kind of like, no, we need to destroy this industry, fuck your life. Yeah, that's kind of the way they see it. Review boards are basically a place where customers of sex workers go to review their time. They talk about the experience and they might rate them or just say like, oh yeah, I saw this sex worker, she's great, she's trustworthy, she wasn't a cop. Yeah. So it can be as simple as that. Yeah, I verified her. She looks like her pictures or looks close to it. She was nice. She wasn't a cop. A+ experience. It can be as simple as that to some people get really detailed with it. It's basically like Yelp. It's like Yelp reviews. So I don't need to tell you that review boards can sometimes become cesspools of misogyny and racism. I don't need to tell you that. If you've ever been on any kind of review board or a YouTube comment section, you kind of know that. Like, people are assholes. People can be assholes. A lot of them tend to become very coercive and a way of trying to extract more from sex workers. It becomes kind of a bullying kind of thing. Some sex workers are on review boards and they rely on review boards for business, or some of them just kind of do it to kind of prop up their business a little bit more, because it does, for some people, establish more verification because you have a review out there that you're in this business and that you can be trusted, basically. But it should be noted that most people on review boards are not the vast majority of clients. They're just not. Like, they're just not. I feel like this is common sense. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like this is common sense, but I need to say it because the sad reality is that SWERFs and bigotry against sex workers is the dominant narrative. And according to them, this is like the sex industry exposed. Like, review boards are the sex industry exposed. This is how all our customers see us, and it is what defines us, and this is the truth. In the conversations that I have had with these hateful bigots, they tend to say that the vast majority of customers do go on these review boards and that other men read them so that they can find the most I guess submissive or exploitative women that they possibly can, which is just not, it's not true. Like, it's a lie. Like, that's not, no. Most people wouldn't be on there, okay? This is not like reviewing a Dunkin' Donuts or some other business. It's not like that. There is stigma and a lot of the times criminalization involved. It is illegal in the state of New York and in pretty much, I think, every state in this country to buy sex worker services. It's illegal already. So if you're on a review board, you are taking some liability in that because your IP address and other information can be seized by the feds And they have done this kind of stuff before. They've done it with Arrows, for instance, which is not a review board site, but it is an escort ad site. They tend to target sex workers, no matter what. Like, you ever notice that? Like, even though both sides of the economic equation are illegal, like, we just tend to get targeted more. Ever notice that, like, it's illegal to hire undocumented immigrants, but we get hired anyway? And no employer ever gets targeted despite the laws making it illegal to hire us. Yeah. This is why the Nordic model won't work, by the way. The system is not set up to target buyers or like corporations or anything. Like, it's just not, that's not how the system is set up to work. Workers usually bear the brunt of any criminalization policy. Like, always. Yeah, most people aren't on review boards because it could be detrimental to their lives, like criminally, legally, socially, just they could lose their job, like everything could happen to them. Why would they do that? Why would the vast majority of them be on there? And another thing to know too is that most sex workers don't get a lot of reviews. Like, there are women who have been, women and men, because men do work in the industry, who have been in this industry for years and they have like maybe 5 reviews. Let's say they worked in the industry for 5 years and they only got like 5 reviews. Are you really saying that they only got 5 customers within that time? That's not... No, it's not how it works. It's actually really hard to get somebody to review you. Sex workers often beg or offer like reduced rates for a review. Seriously. Some sex workers do that. There's also the factor that most people, most sex workers and most customers do not participate in review culture. They don't review at all. They don't even read them. They don't sign up for these websites. I don't, so I'm just saying the vast majority of us don't. And this becomes really ironic because there are a lot of SWERFs that like to claim that most sex workers are street-based workers and they're not online. And yet they will use review boards anyway. How does that even work? They might also claim that most sex workers are brown and black people or migrants, you know, things like that. Here's the thing about that data. The data that says that most sex workers are street-based, the data that says that most sex workers are brown and black women or are these marginalized people. You know where that data comes from, right? Do I even need to tell you? If you've been on this like YouTube channel or followed me for a while, you kind of should already know where this data comes from. But it comes from police, because police patrol and police poor neighborhoods and they specifically target poor women. They go for low-hanging fruit. They go for like easy targets. So they're most likely not going to target the vast majority of sex workers that are online. For those of you who aren't familiar with kind of the history of New York, I had a teacher that actually talked to us about the crackdowns on crime that they used to do back in like the 70s or something. But New York City used to have a lot of streetwalkers, a lot of sex workers working the streets and stuff. And for the most part, sex work has moved online. So most sex workers are actually online. And the vast majority of us do not use review boards. I feel confident saying that. We don't. Just saying. And even the ones that do don't get that many reviews. Most customers are not reviewing them. And I would say that most customers don't really care about reviews, you know? Like, if you find someone attractive and you want to meet them, or you've seen their work online and their pictures and their commentary and you're into it and you want to meet them, then you're gonna do it, you know, just to have the experience. Police tend to go for the low-hanging fruit. So they usually patrol poor neighborhoods. They usually target black women, poor women, migrant women, trans women. That's usually who they incarcerate and arrest for this kind of stuff. It's usually the people they harass. Ugh, okay, look, it's kind of like saying that most people who do weed are brown and black people, and then not really addressing the fact that police mostly target brown and black people, because the truth is, black, brown, and white people, like, they all collectively consume about the same amount of weed. Like, it's not really, like, enormously different. It's just that the police tend to target certain groups more. That's really what it is. If you pay any kind of attention to the real world, you would know this. It's the same thing with sex workers. White women are in the sex industry a lot. I would say the vast majority of sex workers in this country, because they make up the biggest demographic, they tend to be white. Point blank, period. But again, the police aren't really going to target them as much. They mostly target brown and black people, and they deport brown women and Asian women from the US because they're sex workers, or they're selling drugs or something, or they're consuming drugs, or maybe they have some weed on them. I don't know. But that's usually who the police go after. So if you're using that kind of data, just know where you're getting it from. You're getting it from the police that mostly targets poor women. And they criminalize their survival. That is what you're doing. The reason why I'm addressing this is because a lot of people who do not like sex workers, who hate us and want us to, like, disappear from society, they usually use review boards or police stats to claim that we shouldn't be listened to, that we are brainwashed, that we're stupid, that we're greedy whores, that we aren't really marginalized at all, and you shouldn't listen to us because, you know, we clearly are going to defend this because we want money or something, because, you know, money isn't, I guess, necessary for our survival or something. The one that really trips me off is the review boards thing. It really, really, really pisses me off. I have had people like this literally claim that because I had access to a cell phone, right, then that meant that I wasn't really marginalized at all. That I was just privileged and wealthy and spoiled and a greedy fucking hoe, and I should be ignored. Because apparently there are real marginalized people who are chained up, held against their will, that can't speak. And that is why she needs to speak up for those people. What she's actually doing, though, is violent erasure. It's white supremacy. You see, because a lot of sex workers speak under her comments, and she ignores all of them and tells all her followers to ignore us. Something else you should know about this person: they are anti-LGBT, like, completely. They think homosexuality is a sin and that we should make gay marriage illegal. And they fight to do that overseas as well. They fight to criminalize homosexuality overseas. They're also against abortion, right? They're against a whole bunch of stuff because they are very extremely religious, and not in terms of being a good person or being open-minded or being loving. You know, this is kind of what I call it when certain religious people kind of use God as a way of enforcing white supremacy and really advocating for state control and repression, mostly through police and criminalization. That's the kind of person she is, and a lot of people follow her because they think she's a feminist. That's the hilarious part. They think she's empowering women somehow by telling other women and other people and policymakers to ignore sex workers, to ignore us. And if you follow her social media page, what she loves to use is the most misogynistic, racist things that she can find on review boards. She cherry picks that and says, this is the truth about the sex industry and sex workers. This is their value. This is what they actually are. These women are not people. They are fleshes of meat. They are fuckholes. They are nothing. And they exist for male pleasure. And you should not listen to them, because these misogynistic men who don't value them at all and who want to rape and kill them and fantasize about it and write about it, those are the people you should really be listening to, because they're exposing the truth about our existence and our jobs. The reason I point this out is because at the end of the day, this kind of feminism, this kind of fake social justice bullshit that is very patronizing towards sex workers, it's actually misogyny. It is. It's patriarchy, it's misogyny, it's parading around and wearing a mask of empowerment, of saviorism, of, oh, we just want to empower these women by stripping them of their rights and silencing them when they advocate for rights and a voice for themselves. How dare they? We are going to make them be silent by telling them that they're stepping on these marginalized women that we can't see or hear, and by telling people that they should listen to these misogynistic, horrible people who hate them. If you did this in any other industry, seriously, you would be a douchebag. You would. If the workers were trying to unionize or get better working rights, trying to get rights for themselves and recognition and a voice in a job that doesn't give them those things, and some asshole just came out of nowhere and was like, well, I went through all these Yelp reviews, and here are the worst customers you've ever had. This person says that you suck. They said that you did such a horrible job on their chicken that you would be better off dead. Like, if they came up with all these comments and then just used that as like proof for why you should be ignored and why like you shouldn't have a job, they wouldn't be good people. You just wouldn't argue that is not bigotry or is somehow empowering, because it's not. And it's one of their favorite talking points. Literally, this idea that they found, these men that are actually evil, and that's going to expose the sex industry and, expose the truth about sex workers is really fucked up. It's really fucked up. A lot of these SWERFs do presentations and, feminist empowerment seminars and other things like that on sex work. And they will cite the most horrific stuff that they can find on review boards that most sex workers don't even use. And that's what they base policy on. That's how they train police. That's how they do John schools sometimes. And how they speak to the public about this stuff. That's what they cite. Is people who hate us. It's the worst customers that anybody could want is who they cite. Now, I say this because there are customers that do read this stuff. There are, customers are human beings. They're regular people like you and me. And I say this because they do read this stuff. They do read feminist critique. I've had clients like this. Clients who have seen shit like this, who have read feminist critiques and, read about all these horrific, misogynist men and what they have to say about these, worthless sex workers. They read these feminist critiques. And guess what? It doesn't stop them from buying sexual services. You hear that? It doesn't actually work. They still come to us. And they're honestly the most annoying fucking customers. They are. You know why? Because they're usually very condescending. They're usually the customers that will say really weird shit to us during our meetings. I had one customer kind of allude to the fact that I would never find love because of my job. We started having a conversation about my job, and he's like, yeah, one of the downsides about your job is that you'll never find love, though. Huh? Huh? Now again, this is a person who has read feminist critiques about the sex industry and who has, read about, these fabulous and ultra empowering feminists that like shine a light on the worst misogynistic opinions that some customers have of us as like the truth. These are the type of people that like read those things, and that's what they told me. I'm bored. Having a customer like that is not normal for me. Most of my customers are great people, and they see what I do as a job, and they respect my boundaries, and they're very nice to me, and they treat me like I'm an actual human being. It's great. It's really amazing. However, once in a while I get a customer that is kind of a douche. And I'm not the only one. I know of a lot of sex workers that have dwelt with people, clients, that they really believe a lot of these things that feminists tell people. Feminists tell people, which is that we can't say no. Do you know why that's a problem? Do you know why it's a problem to openly go out of your way to teach people that in prostitution and in the sex, these girls can't say no. They can't say no. It's not possible for them to say no. You going around and saying that is deadly for us. Please stop doing that, because trust me when I say this, misogynistic men read what you post and they will believe you. Because you are a woman and you are co-signing that shit. And when you showcase misogynistic men's opinions, that doesn't hurt them. It hurts us. That you place such a high value on their opinion over our lives. That hurts us. You're not shining a light on anything. Did we really need you to shine a light on the fact that there are men out there who hate women? Did we need you to shine a light on the fact that there are men out there who will rape women and brag about it online? Honey, you can find that in any industry. You can find that everywhere. It's not just in the sex industry. There are men like that that really are like this, that will talk about how a woman didn't look at him right or didn't please him enough, and therefore, he's considering killing them. And it's called misogyny. It's violent. It's horrible. No woman should have to deal with that. But the idea that you would place such a high value on that and act like it's normal and normalize it and then talk about it as if like we don't have any agency at all in this industry and therefore the sex industry needs to be abolished is really horrific. Because here's the thing. The sex industry isn't going away. It's already criminalized. People are already in prison for this. There's a bunch of deterrents to keep people down, to ensure that they are stigmatized and hated and criminalized if they ever enter the industry. And people are still in the sex industry. It does not work. So what you are doing is further stigmatizing and increasing our danger. There are people out there who have an appetite to rape and hurt and kill people. Do you know why so many serial killers go after homeless people or sex workers? Do you know why they do that? It's because they know that we live in a society that criminalizes, hates, and stigmatizes sex workers. That we are viewed as the least important thing in the society. That we are viewed as inhuman scum that doesn't belong in society. That's why they go after us. Serial killers have said this, that they were trying to decide who to kill because they had an appetite to hurt people, and they decided to go after sex workers because they didn't, quote, think anyone would miss them, that they were doing a service to society by eliminating their lives. Border Patrol killed, I believe it was in 2017, 4 women. And he killed them because they were sex workers. And he thought he was doing a service to society. The sex industry, porn, prostitution, didn't force him to do that. What made him do that was the fact that he had an appetite to hurt somebody that he could get away with hurting. And all the messaging from society told him that he could get away with this if he killed sex workers, that it would be a good thing if he went after sex workers. And when you think about our laws that criminalize our industry and our lives, when you think about the way that feminists talk about us, the way that so many people talk about sex workers and laugh at our deaths with dead hooker jokes, you can see why these people would come to those conclusions. These talking points suck, and you'll see a lot of feminists, sadly, use them. It silences our lives, it silences our voices, and our voices should be the ones that matter because we're the ones who live this and we have lived experiences. I said this to a friend a few days ago because we have a lot of researchers and police, law enforcement, politicians, and professional feminists that basically put themselves above sex workers as authority figures over our lives. And what I said was that my body count is the data. My body count is the data. It's the experience. I have lived experiences. And that is more valuable than any estimate or made up figures or racial profiling or sexual profiling that any of these people do, because that is what they are doing. The vast majority of them are just hateful bigots that target us and manufacture the danger in our lives and then act like that danger and that hatred is somehow something that we bought upon ourselves for being in the industry. And that they then use to justify increasing penalties and the danger for us. It's not fair. So, yeah. I hope this video was somehow insightful, and thank you for listening. Trust me, most people don't listen to us, so I really do appreciate it.